Most people will tell you that if you're pursuing the CAPM, you are wasting your time. They'll tell you to skip it. Wait until you qualify for the PMP. Come back when you have more experience. And on the surface, that really sounds like some really good, reasonable advice. But I believe it's some of the worst advice you can actually give someone who is serious about building a career in this thing that I love, that I hope you fall in love with, called project management. Because those people don't know your situation. They don't know if you're trying to break into project management. They don't know if you're trying to understand PMI's framework. And take a no break. They don't know if you're trying to determine whether project management is a career you're trying to really pursue. What they see is the destination. What they ignore is the preparation. What the mistake is that they believe they know more about where you're going than you actually do. Oh, this is getting good, family, because the CAPM was never designed to compete with the PMP. It was designed to prepare you for the journey that's eventually leading you there. But have you ever noticed how people love to celebrate the results and ignore the preparation? They celebrate the promotion. They ignore the years of learning. They celebrate the black belt. They ignore the white belt. They celebrate the PMP. They ignore the CAPM. And that reminds me of one of my favorite movies growing up. One of my favorite movies growing up, probably like some of you, was The Karate Kid. Not because of Daniel LaRusso becoming a champion, because of what happened before he became one. When Daniel first started training with Mr. Miyagi, he thought he was learning karate. Instead, he spent his days waxing cars, painting fences, sanding floors, painting the house. And after a while, he became frustrated because none of that actually looked like he was learning karate. None of it actually felt like progress. In his mind, he wasn't learning anything. Then came the moment that probably shocked me just like it shocked you. Mr. Miyagi said, "Show me, wax on. Show me, wax off." And Daniel did it. Then came the punches, the blocks, more punches, more blocks. And suddenly Daniel realized something. He had been learning the whole time. The preparation was hidden inside the repetition. Again, it was hidden inside of the repetition. The lessons were happening long before he could even see the results. And that's exactly how I view the CAPM. Most people see the PMP as the destination, but they overlook everything that prepares someone to get there: the study plan, the commitment, the discipline, the practice exams, the uncertainty, the self-doubt, and even the logistics. I've seen students spend months preparing for the exam only to create unnecessary stress on exam day because they never drove to the testing site beforehand. They assumed they knew where it was, but they underestimated traffic. They didn't know where to park. They showed up flustered before the exam even started. That's not a project management problem. That's a planning problem. And sometimes those lessons are just as valuable as the certification itself. Principle number one, the CAPM teaches you how PMI think. Most people think the CAPM is simple or a smaller version of the PMP. It isn't. The CAPM introduces you to predictive, agile, hybrid approaches, business analysis, stakeholder engagement, risk management, project delivery concepts. But more importantly, it teaches you how PMI thinks. That's the real value, because many people don't fail certification exam because they lack intelligence. They fail because they haven't learned how PMI approaches problems. Here's the lesson. Understanding the framework behind the questions is far more valuable than memorizing answers. If you learn how PMI thinks, you're not just preparing for the CAPM. Here's 2 actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with. Focus on understanding concepts instead of memorizing questions. Next one, ask yourself why PMI prefers one answer over the other. Here's my professional advice, family. Don't treat the CAPM as an exam. Treat it as an introduction to a professional language. The sooner you learn how PMI approaches leadership, risk, stakeholders, and delivery, the easier it becomes to grow throughout your career. But understanding how PMI thinks is only part of the journey, because knowledge alone has never changed anyone's career. At one point or some point, you have to sit down, create a plan, and do the work. And that's where many people discover the second lesson that CAPM teaches: commitment. Principle number 2, commitment matters more than the credentials. Ooh, this is my favorite principle, family, because most people, and I'm not talking about you, I'm saying most people only see the letters after their names, CAPM, but they don't see the politics. They don't see the closed doors. They don't see the work that happened before the exam, choosing the study materials, building a study plan, taking practice exam, managing frustration, learning consistency, showing up on days where motivation just seems to be depleting, disappearing, just made a decision not to show up at your house that day. Those are actually leadership skills disguised as study habits. Here's the lesson, family. Nobody sees the preparation. They only see the credentials, but the preparation is where the transformation happens. Here's 2 actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with. Build a study schedule and treat it like a project. Next one, measure progress weekly instead of relying on motivation. Here's my professional advice. The biggest lesson I learned from the certification preparation wasn't project management. It was discipline. Nobody can study for you. Nobody can take the exam for you. Eventually, you have to sit down, do the work, trust the process. That lesson carries into every project you'll ever lead. And once you've committed to the process, something really interesting begins to happen. You start building confidence, not because you suddenly know everything, but because you've proven to yourself that you're capable of learning, which brings us to the third lesson, respecting the beginning. Principle number 3, respect the beginning. Nobody starts with 20 years of experience. Nobody starts as a senior project manager. Nobody even starts with the PMP. Every professional journey begins with the first step. The CAPM gives people a place to begin, and beginners matter. Here's the lesson. People who respect the process often outperform people who only chase the outcome. Oh, that's going to hit hard. I know I'll ruffle some people's feathers, but too many professionals spend their careers waiting until they're ready. The truth is that readiness often comes from execution. Oh, you don't like that? Well, readiness often comes from being in motion, movement. Here's 2 actionable tips I'd like for you to experiment with. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. I'm going to say that again because somebody needs to know this and feel this. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. Next one, focus on building momentum instead of proving yourself to everyone. Here's my professional advice, family. One of the biggest mistakes I see professionals make is waiting until they feel qualified before taking action. Confidence rarely comes from that. Action comes first, then confidence follows. The CAPM may not make you an expert, but it can help you become the type of person willing to do the work long before the rewards show up. And when you step back and you look at all 3 of these principles together, you begin to realize something. This was never really about the CAPM. It was about preparation. It was about commitment. And it's about having the humility to start before you're ready, because every meaningful achievement in life begins exactly the same way, with one step after the other. Here's the final reflection, family. The CAPM isn't valuable because it makes you an expert. The CAPM is valuable because it teaches you how to become one. Just like Daniel didn't realize he was learning karate while painting the fence, many professionals don't realize they're developing habits, discipline, and a mindset that will carry them through the rest of their career. And that alone is the lesson. People underestimate preparation because they only respect visible results. But the professional who win in the long run are usually the ones willing to do the work that doesn't look impressive yet. The study session, the practice exam, the early mornings, the setback, the repetition, the preparation, because that's where growth actually happens. Every PMP holder once was a beginner. Every project leader had to take their first step. And every meaningful career starts long before anyone notices the progress. The CAPM, let me say it one more time. The CAPM may not be the destination, but for many professionals, it's exactly the beginning they need. And that's why the CAPM deserves more respect than it gets. If you're new to the episode, I go by the name of ED. For all you smart and intelligent folks out there, hey, listen, that just simply means air. Until next time.